Hi everyone, both Montano here, the internet's vs Fire Emblem nerd, and it's time for a music review. This time of the Fire Emblem 7 OST. Now, Fire Emblem the Blazing Blade, or Fire Emblem RECOLLECTION in the original Japanese, is the seventh title of the Fire Emblem series, one that is very popular among their fans, especially because it was the first release on American and European versions, the first release outside of Japan. And yeah, that just means that a lot of people, the first time they got to experience Fire Emblem, or the oldest physical copy they could have acquired, would have to be FE7 without, resourcing to fan translations or anything of the sort. And Fire Emblem 7 OST goes hand in hand with this concept, and it really likes to, grab your heartstrings and try to pull for the maximum nostalgia hit it can. But I'm going to try and be as objective as I can, especially because I didn't get the pleasure to play FE7 until, was it about 2 years ago, maybe more like 2 years and a half when I first started the channel. So, at the very beginning, we are welcomed with a very solid piece at the background as we get an explanation about the scouring, about the 1,000-year conflict between human and dragons. And it sounds, as it should, very respectful, very in tone, and, just a solid start both in audio and video that is what you are going to get to see every time you start up the game. And something that also transitions into another very solid piece, which is the Fire Emblem theme. The Fire Emblem theme, of course, is, I think, a general domain of the whole series. I'm not going to say here that FE7 is bad because it took a theme that was invented in FE1, and this is one of the most memorable versions of the main theme, the one that sounds on the title screen. The oldest section of the Fire Emblem fanbase, when they think of the Fire Emblem theme, even if they don't realize it, the version that comes to mind is probably this one, the one in FE7. And that happens even to me. And as I said, I haven't played FE7 that recently, so it's definitely an accomplishment to take something so well known and that has so many versions throughout the series and just make it your own, and yeah, the one that pops to mind. However, after this strong start, a bit of a decay in Fire Emblem 7, I have to tell you, I was expecting a little bit more when I went through the catalog of songs, but Fire Emblem 7 does have a very big problem, and that is, of course, being part of a series and being an original soundtrack, it can take inspiration and drink from other titles in the series, but in Fire Emblem 7's case, this is even more pronunciated by the fact that it doesn't only take tracks from, I don't know, classical Fire Emblem like FE1, for example, Together We Ride, which has a pretty good rendition, or The Night's Oath, which is also a very classical piece, but it also likes to take a lot of themes from FE6, like Going My Way, which is popularly known as Serra's theme, but was actually first in FE6 as Kath's theme, Distant Utopia, which is the theme for Nabata Burn, obviously the theme for Burn. I don't think this is necessarily a bad idea, maybe only in Going My Way, because that sounds like a bit of a fallback, easy resource to me to get a popular casual music that sounded in FE6 and was probably considered to be good among the FE6 fans, and they just put it again in the next game. But for Burn and for the Nabata theme, I don't think it's necessarily a problem. It, of course, makes sense that they would reuse a theme from a place that appears in the previous game. It's just a bit cheap, and I don't think the OST as a whole should be rewarded and should be considered better because they decided to use something that had been composed before, because there's no variation to this. This isn't a new version of the Burn theme or a new version of Distant Utopia. is literally the same track taken from the FE6 OST and put into FE7. Now that doesn't mean that FE7 doesn't shine when it has to. For example, Strike, which is the battle theme, could have perfectly been the FE6 theme and it would have gone very well, but Strike is, in my book, a 10 out of 10 battle theme. Yes, dun, 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 dun. Very memorable, very to the point, probably outclasses most of the battle themes in the series. And yeah, there are many occurrences of these, like the normal map themes that appear at the very beginning, like Winds Across the Plain, are so solid that it makes me think that they could have done the same for the casual pieces like Burn and Distant Utopia. About map themes and battle themes, map themes across FE7 are very high highs and very low lows, in my opinion, or at least some generic lows at times. As I said, I think Winds Across the Plains is absolutely excellent. It's the map that plays at the beginning of Limb mode, but once you get to Elibooth mode, you are welcomed by Precious Things, which is extremely generic, extremely generic. Of course, to many people, remember that the first time they stepped into Elibooth mode, and they are going to remember it fondly, but it's just a bit empty of personality. Same happens, in my opinion, for Hector's theme. Each of the lords has a theme: One Heart for Elibooth, Lady of the Plains for Lyn, and Loyalty for Hector. And while One Heart and Lady of the Plains work very well, kind of integrating little pieces of, the themes we've been hearing along their modes, Loyalty just has to get thrown in there, because Hector mode is, after all, just a carbon copy of Elibooth mode, so they wouldn't change a lot of tracks. So Loyalty doesn't really feel like Hector's theme, it just feels like a theme that is used for brave people across the game, and it's actually Hector's theme, and nobody would have guessed that without the OST telling you so. To these three themes I would have to add Anguish, because even though Anguish is supposed to be a general theme, it's so used together with Ninian that I think Anguish is more of a Ninian theme than Loyalty is an Hector theme. Then the maps do get better. Precision Things turns into Great Companions, which is more hard-hitting, more solid. And the enemy phase themes, while slightly devoid of personality at the beginning, do compensate very, very, very hard when you get to the Black Fang part, because the Black Fang, both their main theme as a Black Fang organization and the themes they get on their enemy phase when you battle them, are so iconic that I think I couldn't tell you enemy phase themes are bad in FE7 just due to that. Battle themes don't only come on generic battle themes, but also on boss themes. And I have to say the boss theme for the beginning of FE7 I don't really like. It's not that it's bad, it might be a matter of personal preference, but I think Victory now is a bit overrated. When I hear it, I don't hear FE7, I could be hearing any game. While as it advances and you get the new boss theme, Rise to the Challenge, then you would immediately recall FE7. So I think Rise to the Challenge, there's a lot of this happening in FE7. There's a lot of lows and a lot of highs that compensate between each other, but Rise to the Challenge is one of those highs that are so high that, yeah, they just make for a fun experience listening through. Even without battling any boss, just hearing Rise to the Challenge makes you recall certain situations and certain points in the game, and that's just a win in my book for an OST to do. But as every great thing, there has to come a point where it falls flat, and that would be the final map. The music for the final map is exceptionally bad. Everything Into the Dark, which is the boss theme for the final map, so the boss theme for basically the end of the game on Nergal, is absolutely horrible, monotone, tasteless. Tasteless is the word. Yes, very slow pace, supposed to be ominous, but it doesn't get you because it's supposed to be a moment of celebration. I understand that FE7 wanted to go for a more dark angle on the last part, but as a player, you're supposed to come into the last map and feel that you are reaching the end, and that even though what's coming is difficult, it's also going to be incredibly rewarding. But when you hear everything into the dark, it just sounds like Nergal and you are going to, I don't know, take a nap together or something, because there's nothing happening in that theme. The start is so slow, and I can only remember the first notes because, well, Nergal is pretty weak himself, so it just doesn't stick with you. It doesn't go together with Nergal's previous themes during the story. So when you hear it for the first time, you don't think, oh, that's Nergal's theme, but turned into a battle version. It's just a brand new theme, then you don't get the opportunity to enjoy because it appears, it disappears, and that's it. Same happens for the battle theme. Dragon's Gate, I think, is slow pace, ominous, and yeah, that's a nope. That's a nope for a last map. I'm not saying it has to all be choruses and Latin verses like Golden Deer final map, but when you see in this same OST pieces like Shadow Approaches doing that same ominous role but doing it much better, you start thinking where did it go wrong? An Unexpected Color is another 10 out of 10 for me. Requiem is also pretty good. Requiem is pretty good. Although I do have a bit of a complaint with Requiem, and that is the fact that Requiem is supposed to be used for very intense and sad situations, and still it doesn't hit as hard as Recollection of a Petal to me, which is used for, the past of Hector and Link while they are telling it. So that just makes it so that you care more for the past of Hector and Lynn than the actual dramatic situation that Eliwood and Ninian and all that are going through. So that's just a minor complaint. I still think both themes are pretty good, and both themes just add to the overall punch of the OST. So it's pretty nice. Another mention I have to make, and this has to be said, Land of Swirling Sands, the theme for the outside of Navata before you reach the hidden village, is insultingly stereotypical, is so bad. It's so bad. I really don't like it. It feels like Golden Sun OST 0.5. Like they tried to take what makes Golden Sun OST so memorable. And yeah, there's just a lot of trouble with FE7 trying to do that because they realize, because the game has to be released on GBA, the quality of the OST can't be as high as it could be by recording an orchestra or something like that. That's, of course, obvious. And I'm not going to try and ask for the game to include violins and actual verses, people talking, screaming, and I don't know, a bit of a hip hop intermission. No, that of course I understand it's not doable. But while Golden Sun sometimes sounds off because they push for greatness and for different tracks going at the same time and a combination of different sounds all sounding together, FE7 seems like it just settles for the capabilities of GBA and tries to do only what GBA can do, and that's not necessarily good, because in the end you're left with the type of soundtrack where you get to think if they ever remade this, they will have to put a lot of work into it to make it good. While something like Golden Sun, or even to an extent, and we've seen this, Gaiden, that tries so hard to be better than what their software can handle, when they get remade and when they get remastered, just shine by their own merits and not those of the remake. As we close the OST, we get Treasure Hope, which is the very end of the game, and the credits, the roll credits music. Treasure Hope is just a mashup render of the many themes you've encountered through the story. It's pretty good. It's pretty, yeah, it's there, but it just leaves you with a weird taste in your mouth because the FE7 OST starts so strong and Limbo starts so strong in terms of music, and at the very end you just don't get those themes in there, but you get precious themes, which, as I said, I find to be much more generic. So I don't know. I personally felt like it wasn't that good of an end to the OST. So yeah, in general terms, a bit disappointed with this OST, especially considering the expectations I had going in. There are a lot of great tracks, but the way they go together and how much they drink from outside sources is just too much. Yeah, they even put FE6 tracks directly into the OST, into the official OST when they aren't included in the game. So that should tell you something. This game, of course, has to take a lot from FE6, and not taking some of the OST from FE6 would be stupid. But the amount of times they do it and just how rigorous they are with keeping exactly the same vibe as FE6 in certain situations, I don't think is a good idea. So I'm going to have to give it this a 6. Not a strong, not light, just a 6. Pretty disappointing for a Fire Emblem OST. And yeah. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Paul Montano, Fire Emblem 7 OST, forever.